Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and more D&D goodness for you here. So taking a little bit of a detour from our normal Birthright content just to start looking at some of the other cool old second ed content that's out there, and modules and so on and so forth for you guys. Today with that, we're going to take a look at one of these sort of standalone ventures called the Silver Key, which has a lot of interesting things going on for us. So let's take a look at the back real quick. So between the settled human lands and the orc-filled mountains rests the barony of Hanshar. The residents have grown used to occasional orc raids, but now they find themselves facing a full-scale war. And if that's not bad enough, the orcs have kidnapped an important political figure from Hanshar, along with a crucial magical item, the titular Silver Key. Unless the key is recovered, it could be Hanshar's undoing. Both the key and the hostage are being held in the orc city of Krimbahai, so getting them back will be tricky. However, there is a plan. So, one of the key features of this, right? So first of all, it's for levels 2 through 8, and really a party typical size here. So maybe like 3 to 6 players tops, but levels 2 through 8, and ideally you can start them off at the lower end. So one of the unique features of it, which is kind of a high point, but then partially one of the I'd say down points on it as well, or one of the negatives. So players early on are going to get actually polymorphed into orcs, and that's one of the best role-playing aspects of this. There's certainly some faults with the module, but you get polymorphed into orcs and actually get rewarded for essentially behaving like orcs. There's a whole orc point system, which is really cool, just as an idea, because you could apply this to other situations with other species and so on and so forth, and really just create some rewards for players as far as the role-playing aspects go. But there is just a lack of maps and other useful tools, especially for some of the key areas here, and the way that the players actually move around in the orc fortresses, more dice roll determined than sort of their own agency. So it just feels like there's some things that are outside the player's control. So this is definitely one where I think if you're an experienced DM, you'll probably want to make some modifications to this and really make it your own and just kind of smooth some things out. This is definitely not one for a newer DM to run. Just there's a lot going on here. But when we cracked it open, the cool thing was back in the day, these things were also so dirt cheap, but of course now they're so rare, so getting one in good condition is always going to be a little pricey. But the inside jacket has a pretty neat little map here of the area, so you can kind of get an idea. There's that Krimbahai fortress, and then kind of gives you the sort of settled area. The back jacket has basically a bit of a rundown of the fortress, and then some of the random encounters. But as we said, so moving around in there is a little bit tricky, and some of the encounters, so the module clocks in at about, well, let's just say 32 pages, but we'll just kind of flip through real quick. So there's some decent art here and there, and kind of aligns the way that the scenario will unfold. But one of the neat features with the orcs, or the whole orc system and being turned into orcs, is you need to do your part to roleplay and fit in with the orcs so that they don't think that something's weird and you run into trouble. But if the players end up being too orky, there's a danger that they could be turned into orcs permanently, which could kind of suck. And there's some neat surprises here and there throughout, but even in some of the key areas, though, where you'd be going to like rescue that political person and so on and so forth, this is kind of more on the return journey as well. So you're having to pass by some elves who don't know that you're the humans, really. But in some of the key areas, and this is again really already getting to the end of the module, one thing you're not really seeing, there's the whole orc point system, so useful just for getting that really. But some of the key areas just aren't fleshed out enough. So even again, where you're trying to find the Silver Key, rescue the political prisoner, all that stuff, there's just a lack of stuff basically. So in that sense, like I said, it can be a little bit bare bones. So overall, like I said, there's some neat encounters here, some neat challenges. Certainly, again, just the players really being forced to role play and really get into still being their characters, but as orcs, while not necessarily going too far off the deep end and kind of permanently becoming orcs is fantastic. But once you're at that fortress, again, you're not under your own control in that sense as far as like how you move around. So there's kind of like this, excuse me, flow chart built in here, where you use dice rolls to move around the fortress, and then that kind of helps determine what encounters you have and all that, which is all well and good. But again, it leaves some of the agency out of the player's hands in that sense. It's kind of where you have that here, so you can kind of see how that's all structured here, rather than just having a nice detailed set of maps and stuff. So it's a neat idea and concept, but really I think this would have benefited more from having solid battle maps, and the whole work points thing is already enough. So having this flowchart system really kind of detracts, actually. But it is neat to at least have like some of the random encounters here. But again, I think a experienced DM is probably going to want to take some time and actually like drop some maps and stuff like that, and really just ditch the whole ditch the whole flowchart system. But other than that, pretty solid adventure and pretty solid concept. And again, we could apply that to other scenarios, other species and stuff like that, where the players would have to essentially do an infiltration mission, but not just try to sneak in as they are, but really get polymorphed, with some potential consequences in that sense too. Could the players maybe just have like some sort of illusion cast over them? Sure, but you could also, if you're super ambitious, kind of redo the whole thing and maybe opt not to do the polymorphing thing, but then just do the sort of traditional, can we sneak in as ourselves and still pull off the mission here and recovering the magical item and the rescue the character as well. So certainly that would up the challenge level. But again, just as a neat little concept here, these old standalone adventures, it's got some neat things going for it. Not a perfect adventure by any means, but just something to maybe start picking up in your collection of modules, and at least using some of the concepts. So hope you guys enjoyed that little tour through there. Let us know if you've run the adventure and if you've made any mods of it yourself, to make it maybe a little bit more playable in some aspects. Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe. And if you want to see videos like this early, head over to our Patreon, and we'll have plenty more D&D content for Birthright and other settings, and just generic adventures as well. Thanks for watching.